Hello everyone. In this video I'll be going over graphing a translation, this time using a radical equation. When I graph translations I should first identify what is my original graph. Since I clearly see a square root symbol, the square root equation would be the original graph. And if I were to sketch this, my original graph, so I have an idea of what my graph will basically look like. It starts at the origin, and curves out like this. And as I said, since it starts at the origin, try to make that clear, I have the point 0, 0. I can tell because inside my radical I have an x plus 1, outside of subtraction 5, minus 5. These are my two translations. Similar to a translation inside parentheses. A translation inside a radical refers to a horizontal translation, left or right. Likewise, a translation on the outside, subtracting 5, for example, which is clearly not inside the radical, refers to a vertical translation. And recall that horizontal translations have a reverse effect. So in other words, saying x plus 1 doesn't mean I move to the right 1, it means I actually move left 1 unit. Outside the radical, I take it at face value. So in other words, minus 5 means I move down 5 units. And finally, I have a negative on the outside of my radical. Negatives in front of the function itself, or in front of the variable, refer to reflections. There's two types: reflection over the x-axis, reflection over the y-axis. This reflection, is going to be over the x-axis. The way I like to remember is very much like horizontal translations. I think in opposites. If, for example, the negative were inside the radical in front of the x, or in front of my variable. But I'll say x because it helps me remember. So in front of the x directly, as you see here in red, has a reverse effect, so it would be a reflection over the y-axis. But since the negative is not in front of the x, it's outside the whole expression, the whole radical symbol, then it would be the x-axis. And more to that logic, I can multiply both sides by -1 and the negative would come back in front of the y. And I could use the same logic. Well, in terms of opposites, if the negative was in front of the y, it's a reflection over the x-axis. So combining these, from my origin, I'll apply my reflection first. So this graph, instead of being above the x-axis, will now be below the x-axis. Then, following my translations, I move left 1 unit and down 5. Since my original point was 0, 0, left 1 down 5 means this is now -1, -5. And has this shape here in black, so it looks something like this. So again, I want to identify all my translations or transformations. In this case, horizontal, vertical, and then in reflection, and then graph accordingly.